So we're car enthusiasts, right? We know about different engine configurations, different sizes, coupes, sedans, hatchbacks, drop tops, different body styles, sharper, rounder, different suspension, different transmissions. But honestly, there's another world that we could step into today, and that is bikes. So today I'm going to convince you to buy a bike in 2025. Now, let's run through what we have here. I got a little bit of Japanese muscle here with the Suzuki V-twin, and then she has this Honda CBR600RR, which is an inline-4 animal. Working on bikes is really simple compared to cars. Everything is just a smaller version packed into a little crotch rocket or cruiser, depending on what your preference is, because there's plenty options out there. You can get yourself a sports bike, you can get yourself a sport tourer. I guess you can consider mine a bit more of a sport tourer, but I lean pretty hard on mine. You can get yourself a cruiser, you can get yourself a chopper. There's so many configurations, just like cars, where you have coupes, sedans, blah, 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 blah. With these, you have different engine configurations too, which is inline-4, V-twin, parallel twin. There's even 3 cylinders. There's, what else is there? Good God. There's single cylinders as well. That's another one. But everything is just so much tinier and so much more fun to play with. I mean, come on. No seatbelts, people. You could just get on and just almost die every time you go out on your bike. But I think that's a part of the thrill, really. So, but anyway, inline 4s, much tinier to work on. All 4 cylinders are kind of facing right here, and they aim towards your forks right here. So to get access to them, like to do spark plugs and stuff like that, you got to get under this gas tank, which is like 2 bolts. 2 bolts and maybe a couple of plastic trim pieces. So essentially, working on a bike is about taking all these fairings off to get access to underneath the frame, and engine is under here, all your hoses and stuff like that. With this bike, there's a radiator under here and stuff. This has a lot more fairings than my bike, but if you get yourself a naked bike, which means it has no fairings here or up here and it's just a headlight, I have a half naked bike. But if you get that, you get so much more access to work on stuff. Now, obviously, if you pick a race-ready sports bike, you're gonna have all these fairings that you gotta take off, which isn't too bad, but it is still kind of a process to get a bunch of bolts out, these tiny little screws and plastic clips, and you gotta be careful not to scratch the paint. But it's very tedious work versus cars, where it's very manhandly kind of work, as you could say. Now, with bikes, it's a bit different. They run off of a chain from the transmission, and the chain is what powers your back wheel. So a lot of horsepower doesn't necessarily mean better with bikes, because you could die easily with upwards of, I mean, you could die on any bike easily, but the more power, the less control you have of that power to get to the ground, because it's just one wheel. So be careful with your selection. If you're new, definitely go with a smaller CC and just get out there and have some fun, because 400s, 300s, they can all go around corners. Like, it's just like getting a lightweight car. It's fun, especially around the corners. It may not be fast in a straight line, but it's more whippable, more fun. With a bike, getting on and using your entire body to turn it, it's just such a thrill. I mean, how much more do I have to convince you to buy a motorcycle? They are just fun. Obviously, it's not safe fun, but it's fun. You just have to be safe when you're out there riding. More on the engine configurations. I'm gonna give you a couple of sound clips here so you can hear the difference between an inline-4 and a V-twin. Now these are just two of the various options that you could pick from when you're getting a bike. Because, I mean, just listen to this noise, baby. Just listen to the noise. Now, suspension on bikes is limited to forks up front, and then you have a shock in the rear under your butt. So suspension's a bit more simpler than cars. That's what this video is about, because they're just much more simpler than cars. You want to keep up to date on your tires. You don't want them going bad, because it's between life and death with tires, hands down. You don't want to be riding on some dry rotted, bald tires on a bike, because there's no airbags, there's no seatbelt, you crash 60 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, hell, even 30 miles an hour, you're probably gonna get seriously injured or die. So I know this doesn't sound too convincing, but we're enthusiasts, so you know you like to go fast, am I right? So you just gotta ride your own ride and be careful. Brakes here are very simple. You get 2 discs in the front, 1 in the back. Two sets of calipers up front. So most of your stopping power is gonna be in your front brake. With that being said, don't slam on it, you'll flip forward. But that is where most of your power is gonna be. Now, when you do brake, usually it's nicer to use both brakes at the same time and lightly grip into either of them to slow yourself down at a decent pace. Now, the feeling behind motorcycles is, it's quite amazing. When you have to use your entire body to lean into a corner, or finding how to counter steer, which is insane. That is such a cool experience to learn at first. It just gets you right into the feels being a car enthusiast. The gas tank is small, but you'll get like 50 miles to the gallon on whatever you choose. Well, I can't say on whatever you choose, but the gas mileage is significantly better than a car, and the miles per miles, you know, if you got a fast car, they're about the same. But gas tanks are like 10 bucks to fill, 15 maybe, depending on the gas prices, but like it's still very, very small. And bikes are totally customizable. Grips, handlebars, you can change everything out, right down to your pegs and how your shift fork is. You can change pretty much everything. LED lights all around, you could do that kind of stuff. You could change your mirrors, change your windscreen, seat. Modifications are quite interesting when it comes to bikes. I see a lot of people get power commanders for the engine. That's obviously a tune, but honestly, you probably won't need a power commander or any of that sorts of stuff, depending on the bike you get. I mean, straight out of the box, bikes are just insanely terrifying and fun. So really, you don't really need too much to modify. Honestly, if you're getting a bike, personally, I would recommend that you just get one and enjoy it, because they got enough power and they scare the crap out of you the way it is. So it's just too much fun, straight out of the box. Changing oil is just as easy. I mean, you got your filter down below the headers here, and you got your drain plug right underneath. If you don't have a full fairing bike, it's much easier to access your drain plug and stuff like that, but honestly, it's just a couple clips, couple bolts for a fairing, so it's not too bad. But doing oil changes is quite easy. I mean, yeah, you gotta cram your hand in there a little bit, but it's really not that bad. It's honestly an easy job, and it takes, I don't know, less than an hour for sure. You're gonna wanna keep up on your fluids. Check them often, very, very often, because you run out of any of these fluids, you could be in for a world of pain. So, check your brake fluid, check your clutch fluid if you have a hydraulic clutch, check your oil, check for any sorts of leaks, check your tires and brakes, that's very important. Check and lube your chain, because that is a common missed piece of maintenance that needs to happen. But other than that, I think you're pretty much set up for good fun, just so long as everything is in order, all your fluids are good, your chain's good, tires are good. Make sure all your lights work for sure, because they are less visible to people in cars on the road. Check your fork seals for sure. That's another one. That's a good one. The fork seals on this CBR are looking a little yucky, but that's okay. In the future, we're gonna fix that. Because if you let them go dry, they will basically seize, and you'll have no front suspension at that point. Now, if you're looking to set up a stunt bike, that's attainable too. You need some swing arm sliders and maybe some bar end sliders here that I have on my bike, just so you don't damage your fairings and stuff like that when you drop it, because you will drop it. That's another thing that I need to talk about, is that you will drop your bike. It's not if, it's when, okay? I've dropped mine, she's dropped hers. Very low speed drops, but you know, it scares you the first time you do it, but you just gotta get back up, get your bike back up, and get back on the road, especially if you didn't flip it or anything like that. But it will happen at least once. If it doesn't, you're honestly really lucky. So now, sports bikes aren't just the only thing that you can get. You can also get adventure bikes, which go on and off road depending on the tires and stuff. Those are really fun. Sport touring bikes, which are more of an upright, still looking kind of sporty bike. You got your crotch rockets and you got your cruisers as well. Sports bikes are obviously a bit more for speed and corners. That's your knee down MotoGP shit. There's also cafe racers out there where you get an 80s bike and you modify it to kind of end up like a sports bike. I will say, if you really want to get into biking, there's one thing that you should check out. One race that you should check out. Isle of Man TT. That's right, Isle of Man TT. Google it, YouTube it, watch the videos. Those guys are absolutely insane. Insane. Watch a couple videos on that and you'll find out real quick if you're into bikes. But anyway, let's go for a ride, shall we? Let me talk you through some feelings. Riding a bike is definitely not for everyone, but I think you should at least try it to find out. Enjoying the open road with engagement on what you're doing and what's in front of you is hard to come by with all these distractions, and bikes force you to focus. I know there's a lot of limiting factors for you to buy a motorcycle. For example, the roads being one, other people on the road, falling and hurting yourself, not being sure how to ride, your ability to lean, and the opinions of others. But don't let your fears overpower the experience of living a little life. Don't let your ego dictate your ride, and don't let ignorance keep you from what could be the experience of a lifetime. Thanks for watching, and ride your own ride.